realistically, I mean, I'm not disabled. I'm homeless. I want to have a house, so it's really tough. Plans after this, if this place does randomly close and there is no shelter, say, I mean, would I even go to the shelter too? I'm not sure. I'm not sure really. You know, it's a point of my life too where it's scary right at the moment too, because I don't know what to do. You know, it's hard for me to keep a job too, so it scares me. I don't want to live like this for the rest of my life. No, that's for sure.
I'm Maurice Smith. I'm the Executive Director of Rising River Media and the Executive Producer of My Road Leads Home, a documentary film project on homelessness in Spokane, Washington. I've been involved in homeless services for some 18 years and a documentary filmmaker for more than 5 years. From September of 2022 until June of 2023, I was the day manager at Camp Hope, the largest single homeless encampment in the state of Washington, with 689 residents at its peak in the summer of 2022. That's right, it was the size of a small eastern Washington town on one city block. We successfully closed Camp Hope in June of 2023, and I've written a book about the camp, about my experiences there, and about homelessness in general in the greater Spokane area. It's titled, A Place to Exist, the true and untold story of Camp Hope and homelessness in Spokane. It's available on Amazon, and you can use the QR code on your screen to order your copy and help support our documentary work. Now, why should you be interested in a book about a homeless camp in Spokane, Washington? Well, because it's also the story about homelessness in your community. Communities all across America are struggling with rising homelessness. From January of 2022 to January of 2023, homelessness in Spokane increased by 36%, while across America, homelessness grew by 12%. Homeless service providers are well aware that official numbers represent a serious undercount. And one of the best ways to not solve a problem is to underestimate its size and to make your plans accordingly. Policymakers in Spokane spent years undercounting and underestimating the true size of homelessness until it finally became visible in the form of the state's largest homeless camp, filled with people experiencing unsheltered homelessness, people policymakers had spent years denying even existed. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And FYI, chances are good that homeless policymakers are underestimating the true size of homelessness in your community too. In chapters 4 and 5, I explain in detail how policymakers underestimated the true size of homelessness, resulting in a city with only 43 beds for every 100 known and counted persons experiencing homelessness. Camp Hope simply became the embodiment of a homeless reality that policymakers had denied, the reality that there was no place for those experiencing homelessness to go. In Chapter 6, I explain how a peaceful protest by a handful of homeless individuals on the steps in front of City Hall in December of 2021, protesting the lack of adequate shelter beds, became a homeless camp of seismic proportions that shook policymakers from Spokane to Olympia and resulted in the governor requesting regular updates about the camp and even paying us a personal visit to see it for himself. There's much more in the book than we can cover in this overview. For example, have you heard about safe parking lots? Chapter 16 tells how we managed what was basically the largest safe parking lot in the state, with nearly 40 vehicles in the camp. We learned a lot, and based on our experience, I've included 7 recommendations for anyone considering opening or managing a safe parking lot. Don't do it till you read this chapter. Chapter 13 discusses the role and importance of individual assessments and how we discovered from 600 individual written assessments that 598 of them needed ID restoration, critical documents like birth certificates, social security cards, and state IDs. In Chapter 18, Attorney Jeffrey Feiner walks you through the federal lawsuit involving the camp, and in Chapter 19, the chair of the City of Spokane Human Rights Commission explains why using law enforcement as a tool of homeless policy simply doesn't work. But out of the 21 chapters in the book, perhaps the most important chapter is the last chapter, Lessons Camp Hope Taught Us, where I discuss 16 lessons we learned that apply to any community anywhere in America that's struggling to address homelessness. For example, do you know the 12 steps required to move someone from the chaos of chronic unsheltered homelessness in a homeless camp to the stability and shalom of an appropriate form of stable housing? I explain these 12 steps in the first lesson of Chapter 21, and the chance of meaningfully addressing homelessness in your community is pretty slim if you don't understand and address these steps. There's more, which is why you need to get this book. Finally, as a documentary filmmaker, I believe in showing a better optic, telling a better narrative, and setting a better tone regarding homelessness and those experiencing it.
But to do that, we need to better understand how we got here and how to move forward. That's the purpose of this book. So I hope you'll use the QR code on your screen to get a copy today. And thanks for listening.